Canada recently put a 2-year cap on study permits for international students, which will reduce visas by 35% for 2024. International students are certainly on a lot of people's minds, and they have a big impact on the economy, bringing in over $36 billion last year alone.
There are nearly 900,000 international students studying in Canada right now.
So why is Canada reducing student visas? In this video, we're going to take a look at the impact of international students on Canada's economy and why the government is taking this measure. Is it the right call or a mistake? The 2-year cap on international student visas was recently announced by Immigration Minister Mark Miller. He's responding to a number of concerns in the international student program, including corrupt degree mills that exploit the visa system and international students who are taken advantage of once they arrive in Canada. So how does the system work? In order to get a student permit, international students need to provide proof of a letter of acceptance, financial ability, and personal documentation proving their identity and background. Provinces and territories decide which institutions are eligible for enrolling international students. As of 2022, there were over 807,000 permit holders in Canada, a 31% increase from 2021. The number reached around 900,000 by 2023, with more than half of these students located in Ontario. It's worth keeping in mind that international students pay significantly higher tuition fees than their Canadian counterparts, with an average of $36,123 for the 2022-23 academic year, a 429% jump compared to domestic student fees. As one specific example, the average tuition for the University of Toronto's computer science program is over $60,000 for international students compared to $6,000 to $11,000 for domestic students. The program has faced scrutiny due to its impact on housing shortages and concerns about post-secondary institutions relying on international student admissions for funding. Minister Miller criticized some institutions as running puppy mills equivalent to diplomas rather than providing quality education. What exactly does the student cap include? To address these issues, the government is capping the number of new visas at 364,000 for this year, a 35% reduction from the previous year. The cap applies only to post-secondary undergraduate students, excluding master's, doctoral, and elementary and high school programs. Additionally, students in private public model schools will be barred from accessing postgraduate work permits starting September 1. Furthermore, open work permits will soon be limited to the spouses of students enrolled in master's, doctoral, and professional programs such as medicine and law. The federal government plans to assess the situation later this year to determine the number of visas for 2025. These changes aim to address the strain on housing markets, concerns about funding reliance on international students, and criticisms of the quality of education provided by some institutions, particularly in Ontario. For his part, Justin Trudeau says that the student visa system needs an overhaul and reassessment, which is what has led to this recent decision to cap the program. As Conservative opposition leader Pierre Poilievre notes, Trudeau and former Immigration Minister Sean Fraser are largely to blame for turning the international student system into a nightmare and corrupt debacle. Let's dig deep and look at this cap on international students. Will it really help with reducing the housing shortage and alleviating the current cost of living crisis? Canada has experienced significant population growth in the past year, with an increase of over 1.2 million people, marking the highest growth rate since the 1950s baby boom. However, unlike the post-war era, the recent surge is primarily attributed to immigration, particularly the influx of international students. While some economists have been warning about the potential issues associated with this rapid growth and the 900,000 international students in Canada, there's no doubt that these students also bring big benefits to the country. Caught in the middle of these discussions are the international students who, while contributing significantly to the country, also face stress and uncertainty, with some expressing concerns about potential homelessness and other students driven into crime, prostitution, and other ways to make money. The surge in international student permits has been notable over the past decade, reaching almost 580,000 new permits issued by the federal government in 2023 alone. The main driving force behind this trend is the substantial revenue generated through international tuition fees. The economic contribution of international students to Canada Canada is significant, amounting to over $22.3 billion annually, surpassing exports of auto parts, lumber, or aircraft. They also play a crucial role in providing talent for the country's future economic growth and countering the effects of an aging demographic. While some argue that the lack of limits on the number of temporary residents, such as students, entering the country has led to a surge in enrollment in post-secondary education institutions, causing a strain on housing and infrastructure, it's also true that the housing shortage goes much deeper than just the impact of international students. The truth is that international students are being bilked by an out-of-control higher educational industry that has been making billions from international students and is now trying to blame them after being caught in their own degree mill scam. Jovial Orlakio Sundu, the president of the International Students Association at the University of Moncton, is one of those who is pointing out that international students shouldn't be wrongly blamed for the housing and job shortages. The roots of these problems are in past political decisions, and economic policies from the Liberals are the real culprit, especially the economically disastrous and unnecessary COVID lockdowns that kneecapped the Canadian economy and fed rampant inflation. International students aren't to blame for Trudeau's lockdowns. They aren't to blame for the degree mills milking them for money in return for degrees either. Those fake colleges that are intoxicated on Trudeau's easy immigration rules are to blame. There's ample proof that leftist economic policy has been feeding fraud and problems in the international student system. Blaming that on the students themselves when they contribute so much to Canada's economy is counterproductive, especially if Canada wants to remain as an attractive destination for foreign students in the future. Indeed, as economist Mike Moffat highlights, international undergraduate tuition, being 4 times higher on average than domestic tuition, has led colleges to heavily rely on international students. This is especially true in Ontario, where a stunning 76% of all tuition fees for Ontario colleges come from foreign students. The federal government plans to adopt a recognized institutions framework to identify designated learning institutions, setting a higher standard with implementation slated for the fall of 2024. But we shouldn't forget that Trudeau's open doors immigration and economic nightmares are part of what's turned Canada into such a dishonest place. Fenshaw College's president Peter Devlin has criticized the cap, saying that it's a sledgehammer instead of what's needed, which is a more targeted solution. He suggested alternatives such as allocating student visas to reputable institutions like Fenshaw and requiring institutions to provide a letter of attestation for individual international students. Fenshaw College, with campuses in multiple locations in Ontario, accommodates around 40,000 students, half of whom are international. Devlin expressed disbelief at the drastic steps taken, especially noting that the cap won't apply to postgraduate students at universities, revealing a bias in favor of university education and a bias against colleges that are producing skilled immigrants and contributing directly to Canada's economy. Devlin highlighted Fenshaw's role in supporting the southwestern Ontario economy, emphasizing programs directly aligned with labor market needs. In a letter to Fenshaw staff, he called for increased government funding to maintain academic quality and stated the college's advocacy with the provincial government on this matter. Other colleges such as Lambton College in Sarnia and St. Clair College in Windsor anticipate substantial revenue losses, potentially $30 million and $40 million respectively. Meanwhile, postgraduate students in gender studies or decolonization can come study wherever they'd like at Canada's top universities with no cap. Maybe Trudeau is hoping to recruit more foreign people for his cabinet who know all the right pronouns, while giving the finger to hardworking foreigners who actually want a chance to learn useful skills in Canada. Foreign students contribute massively to Canada's economy, and Trudeau's attempt to scapegoat them for the mess he created with the economy overall shows just how cheap of a race-baiting con man he is at heart. Empower Financing, the leading provider of no cosigner loans to promising students from around the world, estimates that international students contributed $36 billion Canadian to the Canadian economy in 2022 and are projected to contribute $42 billion Canadian in 2024. New research based on a 2018 baseline provided by the Canadian government, accessed through an Access to Information request from Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada, or IRCC, along with data from Statistics Canada and other reliable sources, reveals that the economic impact of international students in Canada has been steadily increasing. The calculations show that in 2018, international students spent $22.3 billion on tuition and living expenses. The key factors contributing to the surge in spending are the growing number of international students, increasing increasing international tuition fees and rising living expenses across Canada. The number of international students in Canada has significantly risen from approximately 600,000 in 2018 to over 805,000 in 2022, aligning with the number of international students in the United States. This includes 110,000 students pursuing a master's degree, 214,000 pursuing an undergraduate degree, 330,000 in a college or CEGEP program, and 150,000 students enrolled outside of the post-secondary level. Despite the attractive education system and welcoming environment in Canada, the study indicates that the rising cost of living is diminishing Canada's cost advantage compared to the United States. On average, an international student in Canada spends around Canadian $44,000 on tuition and living expenses, slightly less than their counterparts in the United States. However, higher living costs mean that international students in Canada allocate a greater share of their educational costs to living expenses. The study emphasizes the growing economic impact of international students, highlighting the need for accessible financial solutions. Organizations like Empower collaborate with the post-secondary institutions in both Canada and the United States to assist students in affording quality education. Over 93% of Empower's surveyed students believe that their no cosigner loan was crucial to their ability to study abroad. Addressing the challenges posed by rising costs become crucial for Canada to continue hosting a diverse and talented international student population. The research underscores the necessity for sustainable financial support mechanisms to ensure that Canada remains an appealing destination for global learners without compromising their quality of life during their studies. Sasha Ramani, head of corporate strategy for Empower Financing, stresses the importance of addressing rising costs, ensuring that sustainable financial support mechanisms are in place to maintain Canada's attractiveness to international students without compromising their educational experience. As Canada continues to host a diverse and talented international student population, the study underscores the urgency of implementing such financial support mechanisms. The reduction in student visas may help in some crowded urban areas with stabilizing rental prices and slightly increasing housing availability. But the real problem with Canada's economy and the sick inflationary spending of the Trudeau government aren't the fault of international students. Let's be honest about what's going on in Canada. Rampant crime, theft, and violence, radical gender ideology and cultural Marxism forced through in schools and social institutions, a collapsing healthcare system with the increasing prevalence of government-assisted suicide whose full statistics we don't even know yet, open drug use on the streets, housing prices that are completely out of control, sky-high taxes and far-left policies stifling business and killing entrepreneurship, high tuition costs and lunatic leftist curricula at universities discouraging Canadians from attending. Can you blame foreign students for coming in to try to get an education when colleges are desperate for their money? Can you blame foreign students for Canadian scammers who want to steal their money? This is the problem that Trudeau and his ideological ilk have created in Canada, a notion of fake colleges trying to scam fake immigrants who are trying to get ahead in their lives while being forced to work at the bottom rungs of society. This cap may do a minor bit to help alleviate housing availability and prices, but the economic loss of the foreign student revenue, coupled with the continuing horrific policies, higher taxes, and far-left psychopathy of Trudeau's administration is not going to stop. This is just Prime Minister Blackface pretending to take action to solve concerns when it's his own policies that led directly to this crisis. If you like this video and want to learn more about what's really going on in Canada, check out this video here. And if this video brought value to you today, please consider liking, subscribing, and sharing the video. Thanks for watching.